Educate Philippines recognizes that Filipinos highly value education. As a matter of fact, education is a non-negotiable aspect of our culture. Parents always prioritize their children's education above other things. Teachers dedicate their lives to impart it to the students the best way they can. Philippines exists to tackle the lack of LMS in institutions of basic and higher learning and the problem of connecting the teachers and students to the internet.
To succeed today, organizations need to adapt and evolve with new skills and capabilities, from machine learning to design thinking, blockchain to business skills. And the need is massive. 74% of organizations know that reskilling their workforce is important in the next 12 to 18 months, but only 10% feel ready to address this trend. At Skillsoft, our goal is to democratize learning. So we set out to create a new kind of platform based on a fundamental belief that every person has the potential to be amazing. The result? A digital learning platform driven by flexibility and personalization. It's powered by AI, but has people at its heart. Skillsoft Percipio helps learners accomplish goals, celebrate their journey, and unleash their edge. How does Percipio do it? It's all about the journey. Aspire journeys are pre-curated, role-based and skill-based learning paths that help companies prepare employees for the high-demand roles needed today and tomorrow, like agile development, data science, cloud computing, and leadership development. AI makes it easy. Breadth of content is great, but you need curation and customization to make it useful. Our AI-driven homepage keeps things fresh, engaging, and relevant for each and every learner. Search in human speak. Percipio's search functionality uses Google BERT natural language processing AI, which means learners spend more time learning and less time searching. Badge Up. Learners celebrate, record, and socialize their achievements with verifiable digital badges that are theirs to keep. Over 5 million earned and counting. Seamless experience everywhere. Percipio lets users learn in whatever increment they have time for, bouncing between media formats, devices, and collaboration tools like MS Teams seamlessly, without losing track or progress along the way. They can even learn while in the flow of work with our embedded learning synchronized assistant. Customization and integration. Customized learning tracks. Content from other providers and integrate us. We make it. Users already love the results they're getting from Percipio, and that's just the beginning. More integration and more ease of use with every iteration. Each step brings us that much closer to our mission, to democratize learning and help organizations, teams, and individuals unleash their edge.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to talk about Educate. If you don't know what Educate is, well, it's a solution to the current educational problem here in the Philippines. It all started when the world got screwed over by the virus. No one was allowed to meet face-to-face. That includes classes. So Aldrin, the CEO of Educate, decided to develop a system that would help the Philippines with their educational problems. With his expertise working in Australia, he brought about Educate, a one-stop place for online learning to be a solution to the current problems of learners and educators. This includes a learning management system, hosting, maintenance, training, support, and many more to provide the right tools and expertise to make distance learning simple and easy. We believe that no Filipino students should be left behind. So, what are you waiting for? We welcome you to the Educate family.
The pace of information sharing feels daunting these days, but digital signage can keep your entire campus informed in just minutes. With digital signage, you can remotely manage a network of signs, share events and announcements, keep your campus safe by publishing your health protocols and emergency notifications, and help students navigate. If you choose to, various departments can have access to their own digital signage specific to their audience and communication needs. Or, with a cloud-based system, you have the option of controlling your messaging from one location. Whether you are striving to support distance learning, or eventually attendance at sporting events, or to draw attention to your esteemed guest speakers, digital signage can make it much easier. Several applications of digital signage in schools, such as digital bulletin boards, educational content, digital directories, digital menu boards, financial literacy, seasonal events, and a lot more. For more information, visit the website of Intel-Soln Philippines Incorporated, an exclusive partner of EarthServe Consulting and Solutions in Philippines.
To succeed today, organizations need to adapt and evolve with new skills and capabilities, from machine learning to design thinking, blockchain to business skills. And the need is massive. 74% of organizations know that reskilling their workforce is important in the next 12 to 18 months, but only 10% feel ready to address this trend. At Skillsoft, our goal is to democratize learning. So we set out to create a new kind of platform based on a fundamental belief that every person has the potential to be amazing. The result? A digital learning platform driven by flexibility and personalization. It's powered by AI, but has people at its heart. Skillsoft Percipio helps learners accomplish goals, celebrate their journey, and unleash their edge. How does Percipio do it? It's all about the journey. Aspire Journeys are pre-curated, role-based, and skill-based learning paths that help companies prepare employees for the high-demand roles needed today and tomorrow, like agile development, data science, cloud computing, and leadership development. AI makes it easy. Breadth of content is great, but you need curation and customization to make it useful. Our AI-driven homepage keeps things fresh, engaging, and relevant for each and every learner. Search in human speak. Percipio's search functionality uses Google BERT natural language processing AI, which means learners spend more time learning and less time searching. Badge Up. Learners celebrate, record, and socialize their achievements with verifiable digital badges that are theirs to keep. Over 5 million earned and counting. Seamless experience everywhere. Percipio lets users learn in whatever increment they have time for, bouncing between media formats, devices, and collaboration tools like MS Teams seamlessly, without losing track or progress along the way. They can even learn while in the flow of work with our embedded learning synchronized assistant, ELSA for short. Customization and integration. Administrators can customize learning tracks, host content from other providers, and integrate into any LMS. We make it easy to make it your own. Our users already love the results they're getting from Percipio. And that's just the beginning. As the market evolves, so will Percipio, with more capabilities, more integration, and more ease of use with every iteration. Each step brings us that much closer to our mission, to democratize learning and help organizations, teams, and individuals unleash their edge.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to talk about Educate. If you don't know what Educate is, well, it's a solution to the current educational problem here in the Philippines. It all started when the world got screwed over by the virus. No one was allowed to meet face to face. That includes classes. So Aldrin, the CEO of Educate, decided to develop a system that would help the Philippines with their educational problems. With his expertise working in Australia, he brought about Educate, a one-stop place for online learning to be a solution to the current problems of learners and educators. This includes a learning management system, hosting, maintenance, training, support, and many more to provide the right tools and expertise to make distance learning simple and easy. We believe that no Filipino students should be left behind. So what are you waiting for? We welcome you to the Educate family.
To the Dean of the College of Education, Dr. Jerome Buenviaje, officials and staff of the University of the Philippines College of Education, organizers of this learning event, esteemed speakers, researchers, experts, friends, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. I'm very honored to join you in this online webinar on education resilience and learning continuity during the time of COVID-19 pandemic. Today, I will be sharing with you the Southeast Asia's response to the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, and my presentation will be in 3 parts. I will share a brief snapshot of COVID-19 situation in Southeast Asia, and I will present the responses of Southeast Asian countries through the Ministries of Education and relevant agencies, and the policies that would foster better and systemic approach to the future amidst the pandemic. Here is the global education overview of the COVID-19. At the height of the pandemic, approximately 1.6 billion learners were affected. And as of October 2020, 580 million learners, or 33.1% of total enrolled learners, with 31 countrywide closures were observed. The first part of my presentation will focus on the context in Southeast Asia. While most may regard COVID-19 as a health concern, it is also an education crisis, an education concern. It has affected almost every aspect of life, and certainly it has affected our schooling. As you are all aware of, the future remains bleak, as the pandemic also affected our GDP growth forecast in Southeast Asia. COVID-19 pandemic has an impact on 2020 GDP growth forecast in Southeast Asia countries bearing economic losses. For instance, the supply chain disruptions due to lockdown and quarantine measures affecting countries dependent on merchandise trade, notably Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Travel bans and restrictions and temporary closures of public places have affected and weighed on services, especially in tourism in Southeast Asia. Countries relying on remittances. For example, the Philippines is hit hard by declining remittances, weakening consumption, as well as investment. These are the contexts where ministries of education of Southeast Asia and relevant agencies found themselves in. Due to the lockdown, schools were closed, and ministries of education and teachers need to innovate, start with transitioning from face-to-face to alternative or flexible modes of learning, and capturing the spectrum of flexible learning options that we can use in this situation. In terms of COVID-19 responses, ministries of education immediately activated flexible learning modalities, starting with maximization of online learning or distance education, developing learning modules, and even utilizing radio and TV channels broadcast as alternative learning modalities or platforms. For its part, CIMEO Secretariat has long considered the need to develop innovative learning modalities to ensure that the needs of the learners are addressed. And the best way to address the needs of educators during this lockdown is through technology. CIMEO webinar series, CIMEO video lecture series to date have been conducted, and participating universities and institutions who are partners of CIMEO have offered video lectures, practical and easy to replicate video clips, that we receive from partner universities under C-Teacher, CityVet, or Simeo Schools Network. Southeast Asia has benefited from open educational resources, which the ministries have championed as learning resource. OERs also offer accurate and accessible content in emergency remote online teaching as the content for learners who wanted to learn depending on their interest. Simeo has contributed to a number of open educational resources even before the pandemic. We were able to produce alternative learning modalities even before and during the lockdown. I invite you to visit our website and check the rich resources that we have placed under the GDLN, or the Global Digital Literacy Network materials, as well as the technology for teaching and learning. Our 26 regional centers and network have also contributed online resources that universities and institutions can actually utilize during these unprecedented times. The Ministries of Education of Southeast Asia responded to the challenges brought by COVID-19 pandemic. You will see that 11 countries have launched interventions to include online learning management system, alternative delivery modalities, from Brunei Darussalam's whole of nation approach, the establishment of Center for Digital Education and harmonization of digital platforms for Cambodia, the circuit breaker strategy of Singapore and home-based learning, push for distance learning, online, offline, blended learning approaches of Indonesia, the development of ICT and alternative learning modalities for Lao PDR, reaching the most unreached learners, the digital learning platform, and holistic, flexible learning strategy introduced by Malaysia, the development of online and alternative learning platforms of Myanmar, the Thailand Education Ecosystem Model 2E2S, the Learning Continuity Plan for Basic Education of the Philippine Department of Education, the Education Application and SMS-based learning strategies of Timor-Leste, addressing the strategies through open education resources and video materials by Vietnam. These are all interventions during the COVID-19 pandemic. Given this reality and differences of context in Southeast Asia, Simeo has organized important high-level forums. The Simeo Ministerial Policy E-Forum on June 18, 2020, talking about immediate responses, immediate plans of Ministries of Education, and the 9th Annual Forum of Basic Education High Officials of Simeo member countries, as well as associate member countries, hosted by the Ministry of Education of Myanmar, talked about school reopening, rehabilitation, recovery, remediation, resurgence planning, and how, as a region, we can safely reopen schools despite the raging pandemic. Looking at all these interventions, it is easy to say that much has been done, but there is still a room for more improvement. And this points to hopefully helping everyone attending this event to allocate precious resources where they are needed the most. The first key takeaway from these developments during the 9 months of COVID lockdown is to prepare our learners and educators alike for technological advancement and disruptions. As we are living in a very volatile learning environment, we must break free from the four corners of the traditional classroom and adopt a bigger, more flexible learning platforms that is nimble and ready to address any type of disruptions. The second key takeaway linked to this is for us to develop diverse and flexible learning platforms based on context. Given the diverse technology infrastructure in Southeast Asia, there is no one size fits all. There is no one solution to all the challenges we face. Instead, a context-driven response is the way to go to uplift the conditions of teachers and expand their training on online technology and giving them much opportunities for capacity building even during the lockdowns. Another key takeaway is for us to reach to the most disadvantaged learners and schools. I have heard from some countries of Southeast Asia that they have tried to provide mobile connectivity, data, loan for iPads, desktops, and other resources for children, providing handouts to learners, to the farthest students in Laos or in Myanmar and even the Philippines, just to provide resources where they are most needed. So there is a need for us to strengthen collaboration with bilateral, multilateral partners to get the desired educational outcomes and to reach sustainable development goals that we are all striving. Gathering partners, stakeholders, even our alumni, like what is happening right now, this is the way to go to ensure that essential stakeholders will have the kind of support to guide the decision makers and policy makers in this situation that we are facing. Allow me to share 3 considerations to map out our response and plans in preparing for school reopening despite the challenges and continuing on even if we're still in the midst of the pandemic. The first one is equality and access. All member countries have highlighted to ensure that all learners have access to learning resources, whether it is online, offline, no-tech, mid-tech, high-tech. We should ensure that the underprivileged, marginalized, disadvantaged, their concerns are heard and access to technology and learning resources are there. Silver linings during the lockdown include focusing on the development of open educational resources. It may be a bit costly, but we need to have the skill to curate available resources in YouTube to prepare our online learning management system. This should not be lost even if we imagine a better normal. And third is the passion and unconditional love of the teachers. They should be nurtured and propagated through the University of the Philippines and teacher education institutions. We should continue this passion for teaching in whatever forms, even in the better normal. At the central image of all of this is the learner. The learners are affected the most whenever lockdowns or issues occur. Thus, all efforts, policies, protocols should consider health, safety, sanitation, well-being of the learner to ensure that no one is left behind. And education for all is really for all. While CIMEO has done so much throughout the 5 decades of its existence, we still have a lot of challenges, the same challenges that we face every year. The region hungers for more knowledge and information. Truly, learning does not really stop. We at CIMEO believe that unconditional love of teachers should be nurtured. Their passion should be recognized. Especially in this time of pandemic, we should celebrate the commitment of teachers to the students. They have doubled their efforts in reaching out and in developing modules to make sure that the learning needs of our students are addressed. Allow me to end my presentation in a more positive tone. There are some voices from the teachers on the ground who are frontliners as well, shall I say, in responding to the learners during the lockdown. I would like to amplify their voices in making sure that they are heard and considered in educational planning, even for today or the future or under a new normal. And hopefully, we will all be better. Thank you to our dear teachers who have doubled their efforts, but they continue to be dedicated and passionate about being a teacher. And to all of you, pleasant day to everyone. Thank you for listening. To our distinguished educators, I presented the scenario of resilience and learning continuity in Southeast Asia. Let me pause for a while to show to you one output of a student, senior high school student, Miss Chloe Borja, on storytelling for COVID-19. And I'll proceed to the discussions on remote teaching strategies, as well as issues and perhaps solutions. Please enjoy this video. Why it stopped?
Welcome to 2020, where we no longer cough to cover up a fart, but fart to cover up a cough. My name is Chloe Nicole Borja, 17 years old, and I'm currently a student in Science and Technology Education Center, Senior High School Department, Basak, Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu, Philippines. And this is my alien friend, Anais. COVID-19 is a disease caused by a novel or new coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2, and it was dubbed by the UNZP as the greatest challenge we have ever faced since World War II. SARS-CoV-2 has never been seen before, hence no one has built up any immunity towards it yet. Plus, it also spreads very easily through coughs, sneezes, or possibly even loud talking. Don't worry, I'm positive I'm not positive. COVID-19 is preventable. And how do you do that, Annie? We do these things not only to protect ourselves, but more so to protect others. You might think you can handle it, but you might pass it on to someone else who can't. So it's not really about our freedom, but the health and safety of everyone. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, some say that life, for everyone, has been put on pause. We're stuck at home, while our precious frontliners are out there risking their lives. So I once asked myself, and the fellow youth like me, are we really doing nothing? We're just staying at home, that's it? But then I thought, it's exactly because we're staying at home that we're already helping. We're helping reduce the spread of disease. We're saving lives. It's our role we have to play. Our role as homelanders. Oh, and sharing vital information about COVID-19 in social media is also considered doing our part. But make sure it's from legit sources. Sharing is caring, but not if it's fake news. Nor COVID-19. Other than the threat of the virus, the pandemic has taken a huge toll on our mental health. During this time, it's completely normal to feel anxious, stressed, or scared. That is why it's all the more important to take care of ourselves and our mental health. For me, personally, I kept myself busy. I went back to doing my hobbies that I never had time for before the pandemic, and also pick up new ones. I also made sure to check up on the people I love. After all, social distancing only applies to the physical aspect. We still have the internet. Musta? Uy, musta? May bahay ka na ba? So, life goes on, even our education. Yes, really. We even had a virtual moving up ceremony for junior high. Nope, we're batched despite COVID-19. Education in the new normal is different, but still designed to make the best out of our situation today. At Stack Senior High School, a new learning modality called Project Help was proposed by Dr. Brian Siakar. It offers two options to students, offline and online mode. It's different from what we're used to, and definitely a challenge. But one thing that I did learn about the youth today is that we are quick to adapt and face challenges head on. So maybe this new normal will soon just be our normal? No problem, Anise. It's my pleasure. Bye! Intervention successful. They won't be coming for at least another year or so. Over.
Great job, Agent. Out.
Nope, the coronavirus does not travel in space. I think.
On COVID-19 that we have received here in our headquarters in Bangkok, Thailand. The youth today are so innovative and so creative. And I'm so happy that as a teacher, we can actually ask our students to contribute to this knowledge development and knowledge sharing. Now, let me focus on the theme of the day, which is on remote learning. Allow me to share my PowerPoint. So after going through education resilience and learning continuity and the situation in 11 Southeast Asian countries in the time of COVID-19, let me focus now on remote education during pandemic and recovery phase and pick some cases in Southeast Asia. So the highlights on remote teaching strategies, like me, a teacher, this is also a challenge, even if we've been teaching for over 30 years. But let us see what's happening in the region. So in Southeast Asia, when we have mapped out the remote teaching strategies, we can see commonalities. Countries, all 11 member states have chosen online classroom, home-based learning as an alternative, as a supplemental strategy, use of printed learning materials, utilization of handouts or modules, as in the case of the Philippines. We also have developed policies on no one left behind at that level, from Ministries of Education, Commission on Higher Education, TESDA. Psychological counseling and emotional well-being is also prioritized, and it should be part of the overall response to COVID-19 pandemic, even as school reopens. Some countries take on even training school heads and school leaders for digital administration of schools, such as in the case of Cambodia and Singapore. We have also training of teachers, and that was taken on by even Cambodia, Malaysia, and Singapore. Subsidized internet quota. Brunei Darussalam spearheaded this support, Indonesia as well, and even Timor-Leste. Free access to online education materials and application, Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, and Timor-Leste. TV broadcasts of many courses and online courses like in Cambodia, in Indonesia, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Timor-Leste and Vietnam. And text-based learning, it was shared by the Minister of Education of Timor-Leste. So there are different responses, and this was in the half quarter of the year. So when we look at remote education, it's coming to our consciousness now. But actually, we have done all of this early on, even in the 70s. But what is remote teaching that we can see? Now we have added mobile-based or radio-based teaching, TV broadcasting. I see that every day here in Thailand when we have different channels for K-12 classes, streaming classes, online classes. They're also fully online learning, and it can be computer assisted, there is game-based learning, live lessons, or lectures. And we also have seen blended learning, a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning delivery, hybrid learning, mixed method. And one thing is for sure that for wherever country you are, you always have to look at the context of the different schools, universities, settings. This will influence education policies, curriculum revision and development. Many countries have reviewed curriculum and to choose whatever is the most important in this pandemic that should be delivered. Pedagogy development, a new way of teaching and learning. Capacity development for teachers, enhancing the teaching and technology for teaching and learning technologies. We also have to take note that we need a new type of student assessment. Now we're doing online assessment, and there are so many applications that can be utilized in this time of pandemic. More importantly, in all member countries, we see that there is home-based learning, and so parents and community engagement should be tapped. Next, I will be sharing some cases of responses from our neighboring countries. In Malaysia, so the Ministry of Education developed a platform, one platform with 3 partners. They partnered with Microsoft, with Google, and Apple. And they moved everything to online learning in their digital electronic learning platform. So students, 5 million of them have to move to this one because there is a school closure. And the vulnerable groups, disadvantaged groups, those who are farthest, should also be reached. But we should take note that in Malaysia, the number of teachers and number of schools are quite low than when we compare to the Philippines. And University of the Philippines is hosting this meeting right now. So the challenge with online learning is not just for the Philippines, because we see that even in Malaysia with advanced technology and with a lower population, there's still this differences in terms of access to remote learning from urban to rural. So the access to PC, tablet, laptop, and also mobile devices. As you can see, urban is more in terms of advantage situation than those in the rural areas. Some have faster speed, medium, slow, and very limited connectivity. And so some students will not be able to gain fully online learning via the digital platform. That's why you need to consider blended learning and other modes of platform for delivering learning. And well, for Malaysia, the key considerations in reopening the school is really engagement. And I think we have this in our country when we have the Bayanihan program. And for the UN groups, we have the Global Coalition for Education 19 COVID response. We need to engage parties. So some ministries of education have actually worked with internet providers to make sure that, learning will continue. Many countries have also prepared guidelines on school reopening, and this includes ensuring the security and safety of students, as well as minimizing the risk for infection. And there are different models for reopening by rotation. So it's just like having the green signal, the red signal, and the orange. That some schools can actually have a normal school opening, go back to school, but the others maybe not if you are in red or orange. But what we also see is cancellation of major examination and even readjusting school calendar. This is true for Malaysia, for Philippines, almost all countries, Cambodia, etc. So there is a phased reopening of schools that were carried out and a big support for home-based learning. So actually, they prepared manual for home-based learning so that it will not only focus on online learning, but it also will expand how students and teachers can actually learn together with parent support. So guidelines, this is really helpful. Next, let's to Singapore now. So the guiding principle is actually the ministry have set this, that number one is to ensure the utmost safety of students and educators. That's the number one priority. So the approach would be timely and will be aligned with the different contexts. And being mindful of whatever circumstances, it will actually be considering the safety of all the society, especially the families. And in terms of strategy, so they use ring fencing and screening in Singapore. They also utilize good hygiene and social responsibility, where students should practice all of this hand washing and daily cleaning, and also wearing masks. It's mandatory to most Southeast Asian countries. And teachers are given personal microphones to aid in voice projection, because in Singapore they're already back, like in Thailand, they're already back to school. And minimizing intermingling. So there are co-curricular activities, right? So they staggered arrival of students, dismissal, and timing to reduce congestion in school setting. There is a fixed exam style in sitting in classrooms and space, fixed sitting in canteens or alternative venues. These are all planned out by Singapore. So phase reopening school is really very important because it can adopt a risk-based approach, which is being considered by Singapore as the students gradually return to school. So other levels of interventions are on weekly rotations and MOE center-based activities. They can still do all of these dances, music, arts virtually, and involving intermingling of students from various schools even. And only some, which will be very risky, can be resumed at a later stage when we are all safe with COVID-19. So in terms of the decision on adapting a risk-based approach for Singapore, they also look at the key considerations, and that is the well-being and workload of students and teachers. So there is a class-based physical education and co-curricular activities that they try to think together how they can allow group activities. And I have even seen the Minister of Education himself participating in virtual co-curricular activities. And those with higher risk activities should be suspended. And if we look at Brunei Darussalam, so they also adopted shifting of teaching and learning approaches into online, home-based learning, and remote teaching strategy and remote learning. So most of the classes will be also in educational TV programs, like here in Thailand, and I can see TV channels having all their classes in mathematics, English, etc. And there is available home learning packs. They do the business continuity plan, the standard operating procedure for everyone, giving briefing to all school heads and leaders, and conducting dry runs prior to the school opening. So when it comes to the response of Brunei Darussalam as shared by the minister and high officials in our forum, they also did curriculum adjustment, and including the formative assessment. Capacity building is part of the response, providing professional development programs for teachers through online trainings and webinars like these. They also considered providing psychosocial and emotional support to school heads, teachers, whatever is needed. That's why they always look at COVID-19 that is needing a whole of nation approach for collaboration with relevant stakeholders. It's not just the Ministry of Education or the universities themselves. It's also working closely with the Ministry of Health and other relevant agencies and even communication providers. And most importantly, the engagement with parents should also be there and supported. So, in all countries of Southeast Asia, there are children who are vulnerable and who are just far, who do not have access to all of these technologies, gadgets, and data. So for Bernard Jerusalem, they have home learning packs and they were delivered. So if the problem is connectivity for mobile data, they have educational TV programs where almost all families would have access to television. And they also asked for donation of devices to really needy and underprivileged students. The connectivity support with package for students as well as teachers and individual education plan. Well, when it comes to school feeding, it was always the question among the ministries of education, do you still provide feeding program for students? Because some countries really have these school feeding programs and they still continued with that, even in Thailand. And counseling support is provided. And in terms of accessibility to online learning, well, if you don't really have access, it's really something that you need a solution. So in Brunei, they have loan programs or they have provided access in different modalities or even in learning centers, adjusting to the new normal in education, adapting to a new way of teaching and learning is actually quite difficult. This is the issue that we're talking about. It's hard to adapt in this new situation, right? And the thing that we should take a look at is the learning lost. You know, we need to find out how we can do remediation and mitigate this in terms of providing compensatory instructional time for those classes that we have missed. It's quite really difficult at this time. And I think we share this learning loss, this learning deficit. And even before COVID, there's already a report on learning poverty in some countries. But we, during the pandemic, we know for sure that there will be learning loss as we cut down on curriculum and we focus on the key areas that students should learn. Plus, it is online. Some students are going out or not being able to join fully in online classes. So in this particular situation, when most of the schools have reopened in Brunei Jerusalem, they have mapped out who are doing home-based learning now, who are doing blended learning, and then who are actually into combination and in full operation. So most of the schools have already 100% operation and they're all studying in school right now, as well as here in Bangkok, in Thailand. So how do we solve this one? In the discussions with Brunei Jerusalem, they want to strengthen remote learning, of course, providing school infrastructure, better connectivity, and introducing learning management system, virtual classroom, and even small classroom. They also have to build capacities of teachers. Now, not all teachers are really into online teaching, even though it was already introduced as early as 2000 in the Philippines, but not all teachers can really just do online teaching, right? So there is a need for professional development of teachers. We need to use technology and be prepared for all of this disruption, and then being able to use the application and the digital devices effectively. And of course, in terms of learning deficit, there should be an approach on how to bridge the gap in terms of learning losses, especially for the marginalized children who do not have access to all of these online education. So, well, in the solution for Singapore, for example, well, they have sort of adapted this combination of home-based learning and online learning delivery, and it's really the circuit breaker mode for Singapore. They're also looking at the overall approach of the country and thus promoting learning continuity in whatever is the situation. As I have said earlier, no one size fits all for everyone. And well, in making remote learning more interesting, so as I said, we can curate learning materials from different sources. and utilize different applications. We have to discover them. You can ask the students to really submit all their entries like song and dance video, or asking students for stories, or doing their own essays and photo competition, and let them present that in classes pre-recorded. It is really making everything interesting. And actually, so when it comes to Southeast Asia, the bottom line is that number one is we should consider those who are marginalized and disadvantaged. And second is to continue with capacity building for teachers, as the ministers themselves have reiterated. Now is the time to build capacity of teachers for digital technology. And third is to continue to partnership, to do bayanihan, this education coalition, sharing our resources, open educational resources. You can create all of the materials that is necessary for your class. And of course, we should not give up. The resiliency in this time of emergency. So that is my sharing for today, and thank you very much. Now I'm ready for question and answer. So let us see. Well, in terms of pass-fail method of assessment in this time of pandemic, so as I said, there is no one size fits all, right? It depends on the policy of the institution. It should be well thought of. But well-developed universities have already adopted pass-fail method of assessment. It's not just in Southeast Asia, but also in other developed countries, even in the US, even in UK, they have adopted pass-fail method of assessment. So it can be a new policy for the University of the Philippines. And let me see another question. I use FB as a synchronous form for teaching and found it to be communication and interaction is possible. Yes, for Facebook, flexibility, and why? Yes. Well, I have answered you already, and this question is, why are we not using Facebook? I think for me, even when I was still at the University of the Philippines teaching, we use Facebook in our class. Students submit their outputs in Facebook group that we have created. And many teachers have also utilized Facebook. How does remote teaching and learning affect the quality of education in our country? Michael, I think, remote teaching and learning during the time of pandemic, the intervention should be carefully studied and documented because it's still ongoing. So we need to have a thorough study, case studies, perhaps an evaluation of the different approaches, whether it contributes to learning poverty or whether it's very helpful, because we are all transitioning right now. We are in the stage where we are adapting to remote teaching and learning. And there may be very good feedback from the students. Some like online learning, synchronous and asynchronous learning strategy combined, but the others found it difficult. So it would be a good report for next year, I think, and we can start the study at the University of the Philippines College of Education. The next question is, okay, in terms of learning assessment to be used in evaluating students, there are different strategies. As I said, first, as Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia have already informed us the need for formative assessment. You can do this all online. And if you want to look at the different models for online assessment. We have also tackled that in one of our webinars, and there are so many applications that can be used. Okay. In my personal experience in my class for EdAd, so first, on the first day of class, I asked them to do their own personal view of their competency in handling online classes. So whether they're prepared for it or not, and then I adjusted the way I teach, which classes can be developed under synchronous way or asynchronous, or video lectures or online materials that can be presented in the class. And online assessment, portfolio assessment can be done, and also utilizing all the new application when students can tick true or false, etc. And also utilizing the videos that students can actually present all their outputs and doing video presentation that peer evaluators can also help. So I utilize peer assessment in my class, and then each one will rate the other one. Of course, using Google Forms. Next question is from Julson Santos. Advantages of using LMS like Moodle. Okay, so, well, there are many universities who already transitioned to learning management system, and they have utilized that well. Advantage is that it's complete in itself. You have discussion boards, you have all the videos that can be seen. It's very helpful. So I think everything is well planned ahead for learning management system that's already developed by universities and colleges. But I think the question for the remote teaching is actually the access of students to all of these. It's always the problem of connectivity or adjustment to this situation. And I think those are just the questions. How does the remote teaching and learning affect the quality of education in our country? So I think, Michael, I have already answered that one. How can we assure that online assessment is reliable and valid? Okay, whether you assess online or during the traditional way of assessment, it's just the same. You just use a different platform. It's just an extra job for teachers to do all of this using all the different applications for assessment. And it's very clear that when you get the course pack, the course syllabus, it already tells you what type of assessment there is. How reliable and valid? I think it is reliable and valid for online assessment. The questions will be the same, but using a different platform now. Okay, one question is, in public schools, they recommend Google Meets and Google Classroom, which needs more data. And it doesn't fit the number of characters. Okay, so for this particular question, I think we have to talk to the Department of Education and find out the many alternatives, not just Google Meets and Google Classroom. But if that is the choice right now, let us see how it can be addressed. But we have ongoing consultation with the Department of Education. I also help in crafting the flexible learning policy of Commission on Higher Education, and we respect whatever is applicable in the different setting. I say no one size fits all, right? And Rudy, Would mostly synchronous method be better for high school and mostly asynchronous for higher education? Okay, so right now I think, well, synchronous is actually a choice. Face to face, nothing can replace a good teacher, especially for the formative years from early childhood to K to 12, early childhood education, ECCE, also children with disabilities. Nothing can really replace the traditional face to face. But however, in this context and in this situation, we are in emergency situation. We have this pandemic that not all of us have really imagined and prepared for. So we resulted to using remote teaching and learning. And there are different success gained from utilizing online remote teaching and learning, but there are also those who will be left behind because of connectivity. So we in this situation, we have already a solution, and that was for basic education, continuity plan, and the regular webinars conducted by the Department of Education. And in their survey, most of the administrators and teachers in the Philippines for basic education, they prepared to use modular type of learning. That's why DepEd delivered all modules because that was the choice. However, we're also evaluating that kind of response to this COVID-19 situation, whether modular instructions are really very helpful. Ryan, okay, that's my point is that how can we further use these all of these remote learning resources after the pandemic? Okay, let's say that next year. I think these are all very good sources of materials, as I have mentioned in my presentation. They're very good. We should not lose all of these, silver lining during this pandemic, that we have a lot of online resources that we can freely use. We can put in our website. We can really put that in our social media and network. So all of these, as early as 2000, I was able to observe classes in the US, and they have already a choice. Like when I visited Stanford, for example, you can enroll in online classes, and you can opt to do classes in the traditional mode, in the class itself, sit in the class. But you have a choice to get some classes online. 2000. Now we are having that. So we're just like all forced to adopt this remote teaching and learning. And I think this is a good start for all of us. This is what we call as a reset mode. We have to transition fast to remote teaching and learning in 2020. So I think all of this will not be lost. And University of the Philippines and other schools for that matter can curate all of these materials and put them in LMS and other online resources of the schools. And how is the internet Wi-Fi connection in other Southeast Asian countries? Well, Melchor, I think one thing is sure, that it's not a perfect world for Southeast Asia. I remember that 80% connectivity for internet to Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines has 60%. Well, Cambodia, Myanmar would have 40% connectivity, and the rest. So it's really different. That's why the response is different. Schools can utilize online classes. Other schools can be using handouts in Lao PDR with very low connectivity. They use, handouts and modular instructions. And the best solution for most of Southeast Asian countries that I have seen is to really engage, radio and television agencies. Vietnam has very good, educational system. So the minister himself said that he will put most classes in television, and thus he have 26 TV channels for all the K to 12 classes. And it was also done by Cambodian Minister Naron. He himself taught online in a video lecture like this that I'm doing right now and put that in TV channel. So most good teachers were called by the minister himself in Cambodia, and they were asked to do their video lectures, and they were shown in television. So I think the connectivity is actually different in all the Southeast Asian countries. But what is good is that you can have an appropriate response. Just remember, no one should be left behind. So I think I have answered all the questions, and thank you so much. And I hope to see you again face to face.